First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. It is a Monday. We know what Mondays are. And for all of our students, you know from a college level, and some of us even from a work level, but we know what Mondays are. And so I just want to thank everyone for being here for our Diversity Career Series and for our panel, which talks about diversity in the workplace. And so we're going to give an opportunity to have conversation about what does that look like and what does that mean? And we have our three panelists who were so gracious enough to take time to be able to answer your questions and provide some insight on diversity in the workplace and some things you should be considering along the way. So I'm going to actually start with Angela. I'm allowing her to introduce herself. If you could talk about who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your story. And I'm actually going to I love to start off panelists with the first question of how do you define diversity? And then from there, we will go with Jasmine and then with John.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Mark. Put me on the spot.
It's Monday. We always on the spot.
We're going to end with a bang. So my name is Angela Branford Stevenson, and I am the Senior HR Manager here at Jim Beam, also known as Beam Suntory. I sit at the Frankfurt facility, and so I'm over the Frankfurt facility and our facility in St. Croix. So my journey is a little different. I went to Purdue. It started off in a technical field. I got a few sales jobs, got to move to Kentucky, and ventured into training and development. And so that led me over here to HR. So I've been the HR manager here for 5 years. So it's definitely been a journey. So it's good to be someone who's been on the other side of the seat and seeing how things happen behind the scenes. And so one of my main missions and purposes is why I'm in this seat. How do I make a difference, right? How do I give people opportunities that they may not have have received? And then also, how do I expand, our hiring managers and talk to other people about thinking about things a little differently? So those are kind of the key big things for me. So being a Black woman in the bourbon industry is definitely not something you see too often. And so while this is a great industry, historically has not been one where you see a lot of diverse candidates. And so being very intentional for me about how we exposing people to the business, right, the industry, but also my company. And then also, how are we changing the face of what diversity looks like in the spirits industry, right? You probably can see from commercials, things have looked a lot different. Who are we marketing to, right? Who is recruiting on campuses? How are things changing? So for me, diversity is seeing people that look like you, seeing people who've had different experiences, valuing those experiences, because everybody's experience is unique. And so how do we take what someone else brings to the table and collectively make sure that everyone has a seat at the table? And so for me, that's really why I'm here today. That's why I take time out of my schedule to go to recruiting events, talk to students. That's basically why I do what I do. So I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jasmine Darden. I am a senior manager / regional sales manager for Dell Technologies in our small business segment here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with Dell collectively for about almost 15 years. I started at Dell right out of college. I attended Fisk University here in Nashville, originally from Chicago, Illinois. And Dell was my first job right out of college. I spent about the first 10 and a half years here at Dell in sales, started as an entry-level sales rep and kind of worked my way up through sales to sales leadership. I left Dell for about three and a half years and went to a smaller company in downtown Nashville. And then I was approached about returning to Dell about 3 years ago to small business. And so it was one of the best decisions that I've made because I've been able to continue to grow and develop my career. And now I'm here today on this panel. As far as diversity, diversity, especially in technology, is very important. We don't see a lot of female and then also Black female women in technology, and so that's one of our goals, is to increase not only our diverse team member population, but also female technology or females in technology here at Dell. Diversity is absolutely important, and for me, it just means when you come to work, you come as your 100% authentic self, and you're able to be who you are, both inside work and outside of work, without any judgment, without any, lack of support, and you're able to grow and develop your career regardless of, who you are, what you look like, and who you choose to love or be with.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Pendleton, and I work for the U.S. Government Accountability Office, which is a mouthful, but the GAO is Congress's independent oversight organization. We were created in 1921. It's our 100th year. At the same time, they created the Office of Management and Budget. If you know your civics, there's three branches of the government. We're in the legislative branch, but we're special because the Comptroller General, my boss, is appointed to a 15-year term, which gives us a great deal of independence and flexibility. We are very committed to our people and especially diversity. We are well along the path, although we've got a ways to go in some areas. But we were ranked the #1 mid-size agency for diversity on an annual survey done by the Partnership for Public Service for several years, and are the #1 agency overall as well. And I think our commitment to diversity plays into that. I'm a small town kid from Kentucky. I went to the University of Kentucky and graduated in 1987, and I've been at GAO the entire time and rose through the ranks. I'm a line guy. I don't do HR, whatever, but I think you'll see that in the conversation today, that our commitment to diversity is not just a few people working in an office. A good friend of mine is the Special Assistant to the Comptroller General for diversity issues. And one of her goals, I know, is to create an environment where it's in the minds of all the leadership. We get annual senior executive expectations. This is always highlighted, our commitment. We have people values, other things. So as we go through the conversation today, I can tell you how that plays out. Again, we like everybody, we got a ways to go, but we're proud of the progress we've made so far. I'm a director just in the financial markets and community investment team. So I look at things like housing issues, whether it be on the public side, public housing and HUD issues, or also housing finance, mortgage markets, those kinds of things. Also look at insurance, had a recent report on cyber insurance for ransomware and other things, which caught a lot of press, and a number of other things. So for many years, I did defense work at GAO. I've came here right out of school and have liked it. So I've stayed my whole career. So sorry for the long intro, Mark.
Oh, no. The intro's perfectly fine. This is again, an opportunity for conversation. So before, like I said, I have some questions to start off with, but I want this to be an opportunity for students to ask questions. So feel free to either put them in the chat or to unmute yourself. And I want to give a minute or two to see if there are any questions out there right now with students. All right, I'm gonna start us off. We're just gonna get warmed up. We'll throw a warm-up question out there. Like I said, it's Monday, so I understand. So when we talk about diversity, I'm gonna start off by asking, how does your company or your entity, how do you create awareness about diversity, and also about diverse communities internally, as we are trying to build kind of build that space for people to connect. And I think this question also comes from a lot of times people may talk about diversity, but internally, how do we create that atmosphere for everyone to be involved in the process?
I guess I can go first. So I think one of the big things for us is, as the landscape changes, to Jasmine's point, how can everyone bring their full self to work, right? And I think that's pretty key. So one way we talk about and bring awareness is we have our employee impact groups, which we call EIGs. A lot of companies have those. Right now, 2020 was kind of the first year we actually launched that. We're a 200-year, as I call it, startup company. We've been around for a while, but we're now really trying to focus on that space of diversity. And so with that being said, we launched 5 EIGs last year. And some of them, including our Black employee group, in the height of everything that was happening in our backyard in Louisville, right? And so I think, having places where people who want to learn more, who are interested in learning about other cultures, people who want to feel like they identify with the group, having those platforms so that you can not only give a shared space where people can bring their authentic self, right? Even if it's for that moment to those settings, but also how do you educate people, right? Because a lot of times people who may not experience different things, right? I always say, you can't necessarily fault people for not knowing. It's just how are you going to bring them along that journey? And so part of that is having those different groups, but then also thinking, how do you embed that into your culture, right? And so as you start saying diversity is key, right? What actions are the company doing to support that, right? So how are we being seen in our community, right? How are we saying people are our number one priority if we're not investing in them and bringing awareness? So things like trainings, I know they're not a fix-all, but if you think about unconscious bias, we all have our own biases. Just understanding what those are could be the first step in saying, okay, how do I get over that and start being more inclusive? So I think those are some of the things our company is doing. By far, we have more work to do. But for me, being a diverse person working in an organization for over 5 years, seeing the steps being taken now mean a lot, right? And as we're thinking about recruiting, specifically when we come to UK, a lot of the students ask us, what's your diverse makeup? What do you do for diversity? So it even challenges even more because when we say, how many Black engineers do you have at your company? And we say 0, it's like, oh, well, we really need to take a look in the mirror. We're recruiting, but we're not having anybody that look like the people that we're recruiting from. And so I think having those honest conversations of saying, hey, we're not there, right? We're working on it. These are the things we're doing. It's okay, right? We don't have to be at the end of the journey. So I think those are ways that we definitely bring awareness at our organization.
I can follow that. I think that's awesome, Angela, everything that you all are doing to drive diversity and inclusion at your company. We have something here at Dell Technologies that we call Moonshot Goals. And our Moonshot Goals include a lot of things, but when it comes to diversity, by the year 2030, our goal is that 50% of our global workforce and 40% of our people leaders will be women. In addition, 25% of our US workforce and 15% of our US people leaders will be Black or Hispanic, Latino minorities. And so our global diversity team is committed to making sure that we hit our moonshot goals and that every segment within Dell, because we are a global company, hundreds of thousands of employees, but that every leader is committed to those moonshot goals. And the way that we do that is, really taking a look at how we build and attract talent. That's one of the reasons why we're here today. How we develop and retain that talent once they become team members at Dell Technologies, making sure that we're investing in our minority and diverse team members and that they have the same opportunities as their counterparts. And then that we scale for maximum impact, so supporting diversity and inclusion initiatives. We also have something similar here. We call them employee resource groups, or ERGs. And we have 13 ERGs with over 460 chapters in more than 60 countries. We also have a goal that 50% of our team members will be involved in at least one ERG over the course of their tenure here at Dell. And our ERGs basically connect our team members regarding gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and backgrounds. We do a lot of community involvement, so our ERGs focus. Every ERG has an initiative around community involvement. We do a lot of networking or provide networking opportunities, leadership development. We bring in guest speakers regarding initiatives, et cetera. One thing that I was really, really impressed with Dell Technologies over the past year or so was our response to a lot of the racial injustice surrounding the George Floyd murder and just a lot of things that happened within the past year. So I was super impressed with the ability to allow minority team members to speak out and be vocal about their feelings and, you know, how what was going on in our country made us feel, how it impacted us on a day-to-day basis, both at home and inside of work, and really giving us that voice and providing support. Our diversity and inclusion group, we track our moonshot goals every single year. We have a diversity and inclusion report, which is found on our website at Dell.com. So both internal and external, interest, you can find it on our website around our goals, as well as, you know, how we're doing towards those goals.
Those are great, by the way. We have a number of those things as well. We have employee groups and that kind of thing. We did. My friend Zena, that took over the special assistant job, helped create something called our people values, which is foundational, I think, to all the things we're talking about. And I'm going to try to share my screen so you can see it, because I came up with a nifty graphic. And please let me know if you can see it when it comes up. Mark, can you see it?
Yep, we can see it.
So I'll just call your attention to the graphic. So our core values are accountability, integrity, and reliability. And this core here was very often part of our, we used to call it AIR, right? But I think symbolically and wonderfully, they wrapped it with our people values: valued, respected, and treated fairly, with these little flags coming out describing what it is. And this is our intranet, and it describes what we mean by all of that. And because we're very much a values-based organization, we're independent, and so this is, I think, trying to imprint on everyone that we want our folks to feel valued, respected, and treated fairly. And that, I think, fundamentally is what we're talking about here. And so I'm a big fan of this. And I think it's made a change in us, not that alone, because we followed it up with a lot of other things as well. We have this policy that's out on the internet, and it took me one click to get to both of these, and it describes our general policies around diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's a big tent thing, right? They talk about harassment in here. The thing I call your attention to is down here. We're moving toward bystander intervention training day to day to train our folks to speak up on behalf of their colleagues, to try to create an environment where if you see someone being offensive for some reason, that you feel empowered and trained to help to diffuse that before it gets out of hand. And apparently the research we've done is that this actually is very effective at changing culture, because people, they see stuff. If it's hierarchical, they don't want to say anything. But this bystander course I took it myself, is really good at teaching you how to diffuse things and not cause people to feel left out, not valued, not respected or treated fairly. So at a high level, that's it. I mean, we do lots of detailed things. We have annual trainings. just a number of things that we do to kind of keep this on top of mind. But I'll stop there, Mark.
This is all great information. Hopefully, students, hopefully you're seeing that, there are companies that are and entities that are, geared towards making sure that it's not only about the diverse makeup, but also making that experience diverse for everyone too, because it means a lot when you get there and then to actually see it and embrace it. And then sometimes having those opportunities to connect in different areas to kind of go in and out of it. So now I did the warm-up question. So I want to see if there are any other questions from students. Go ahead and unmute yourself. We want this to be free flowing. There is no dumb question. There is no crazy question. We are here to have this conversation.
I have a question for Miss Angela. What would you think was your biggest obstacle coming into your field as a Black woman?
Well, I guess for me, it was a lot. I would say my biggest obstacle was gaining the respect of the team, right? And so my team had never worked with a Black woman before. And so a lot of people didn't know, hey, do I invite her to play golf with us? I'm having a bonfire, just would she go to this after work? So I think for me, the biggest obstacle was having people get to know me just from me, right? And not, saying, hey, she's the new person on our team and she's a little different than we are, right? And I'm the type of person, I have blue hair. This week I have purple hair, right? And so those are my subtle rebellion pieces of not everybody has to fit in a box, right? As the HR leader, I don't have to look a certain way to be in a certain position. My work speaks for itself. So I think my biggest obstacle was just gaining the respect of others. And once they found out, like, hey, she's pretty much just like us, but she's a little different, right? She thinks a little different. She challenges us a different way. And being patient for me, because at first I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. This is not going to last, but just sticking it through, and being persistent. And I think for me, it's definitely been a humbling experience because what I think in my world to be normal, a lot of people may not. And so how do I have patience and grace and educate people along the way, right? Because I say for my journey, there's still a lot of things I'm learning and someone has grace and patience with me. And so I think being able to do the same has been a big piece. So thanks for the question.
I have a question, really anyone can answer it. So I'm also a Black woman, and in one of my major is social work, and in one of my classes, we talk a lot about unconscious biases, which Ms. Stevenson, you brought up. What are some ways that you guys have found to reduce your biases in your workplace?
Well, we actually have an unconscious bias training. I think Angela mentioned it as well, that we take every single leader through here at Dell. It's required every single year for our leaders to go through that training. We actually have one of our senior vice presidents, actually my senior vice president, he is trained in that material, and we walk through it. We talk through real life examples of things that has happened, on our floor or with our team members, and how we can become better, leaders and more self-aware about, being inclusive as leaders. When you're in people leadership, inclusiveness is a competency that you want to be strong in, because you want to make sure that you are providing a culture on your team, if you're leading people, or even if you are just a part of a team, that allows people to be themselves, or be their authentic self. And so that training is super important, as well as just giving feedback when you see something, that happens or occurs between team members that, may cross that line, making sure that you're comfortable to give that feedback or talk to someone who can give that feedback appropriately.
Yeah. And I think another great example to add on to what Jasmine said is, once you know your biases, then you can, it's like when you're speaking and you say, right? You become aware that you say that. So then how do you have someone that's your accountability partner, right? Your mentor, someone else that may help you along that path. I think that's another great avenue. But I think self-awareness, which was mentioned, I think a lot of times you don't know what you don't know until you get an assessment. You're just like, oh yeah, all right. So it's kind of a look in the mirror. And from there, it's what do you proactively work on? And it's a journey. And so I'd say diversity and inclusion is a journey. It's not a sprint, right? You're going to continuously be on that journey. The other thing I would say is, it's just little things that you may learn. So for me, my mentor belongs to our EIG called PRISM, which is our LGBTQ group, right? And so I'm not as well versed in that. And I always say, how's your wife? How's your husband? And they had to correct me and say, how's your spouse, right? How's your partner? So even my day-to-day language now, it's always, how's your spouse, right? I don't put, a pronoun or say certain things anymore. And it could be little things like that people say, hey, they're listening, they're getting it, right? And so those are things that for me is your unconscious bias, right? You assume that this is who someone's married to, or this is someone's partner. And then you have to be like, well, yeah, okay, I do that. And then you have to self-correct.
That's a great question. We also have, we had a round of training on unconscious bias. It's embedded in several other trainings now. As I mentioned, we're evolving to the bystander training, trying to create, again, that culture where everyone feels comfortable helping everyone else through things like a gender pronoun or something like that, so that because a lot of times people just don't know. They're just not thinking about somebody else very much, and they just need to be reminded or whatever. And so trying to create that shared responsibility, I think, is where we're at now. And I'm all for it. I think it's great. But again, we have the trainings. Unconscious bias is hard, right? We work at GAO, we're an independent audit agency. If someone accuses us of bias in our work, that's like that's like a mortal wound. Them's fighting words, right? So to then say we're human and we have unconscious bias toward other humans that we work with, I think it took some getting used to, because it's easy to sit around and think you're objective. And we are. There's objective parts of all of us, but most of the way we sense the world's very subjective. So getting people inside that loop in their head. Candidly, it's been easier with the younger people. The people have been around for a while, they just don't have the energy or desire to change as much. But a lot of our leaders have set really good examples all the way up to the controller general. Our chief operating officer is an African-American woman. That's number 2 in GAO, probably in a lot of ways, the most powerful position in GAO. And so people, when they look, that non-white folk look, they see non-white folk in leadership positions here. And that's been a project that Gene Dodaro, I know, has been personally, because I've talked to him about it, has been working on for 20 years, 30 years, trying to transform us. Because when I started in 1987, I love these guys, but a bunch of Vietnam vets in short sleeve shirts, right? And polyester ties. So GAO has evolved tremendously in the time I've been here. So I don't know if I've forgotten what the question was, but that's the answer I'm giving.
Appreciate your answers. And before we take the next question, I want to also, for thinking about our students, as some of you may be transitioning into the workplace and from an unconscious bias, even generational differences have their own kind of unconscious biases in them. And that for some of y'all have heard me make references, and I'm struggling sometimes with that because I'm thinking, oh, okay, we understand certain things, or there may be certain things that I think I understand. But even in those generational aspects, as you're working with a diverse group of people, they can have some unconscious biases based off of those things. So just be mindful, even as you're considering going into the workspace, that that's another aspect, another layer, or another dimension across many of our intersections. So, and I see we have a comment in the chat. They're very grateful for the responses. And so again, I just want to open this up for any other questions. These are great questions. Let's keep them coming. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was going to say while people are thinking of questions, you brought up the different generations. So I have, my son is a college senior, and he reminds me all the time, hey, mom, people don't think like that. Or, he's challenging me. So I always think about, in terms of, do you have a reverse mentor, someone who is in a different generation that can help keep you up to date, right? And so, I even challenge some of my coworkers. I'm like, heck, I learned a lot just from talking to him. And so it has changed my approach, right? As I run our internship program. And as I come and talk to new students and as new people on board, and how I approach them. So I think it's also a great opportunity to have a reverse mentor, someone that you think because you're older, you're mentoring them, but in the end, they're really schooling you. And so I think that's a great point that you brought up about the different generations.
I appreciate that. And to kind of go along with that, when we talk about that search process, what do you think are some ways students should be looking at the footprint, or if they're trying to begin that search process? What are some tips on how to kind of figure out the footprint of diversity for a company?
I would say, every company that's committed to diversity and inclusion will have that link on their website, where you can go and explore, what does this company stand for? What are their core values, one, for around their people? And then number two, what is their diversity and inclusion strategy? What do they offer, team members of diverse backgrounds? What are they doing in the community, specifically in underprivileged or undervalued communities, et cetera? So that's a great way to start and explore. Obviously, you have LinkedIn, so you can connect with people via LinkedIn. We live in a social media age, so definitely a great opportunity just to reach out. It doesn't hurt, to reach out and through social media. And then if you know anybody within that company, definitely use them as a resource. When we have team members on board in training, we introduce them to the employee resource groups, and we encourage them to go out and explore. Usually every city has like local chapters. So in Nashville, I believe all 13 employee resource groups are an option to attend. Our BNA group, the Black Networking Alliance, is for African Americans, but we have employee resource groups that cover pretty much all interests, from retired veterans to our Pride, which is the LGBTQ community. And you can also be allies of any of those employee resource groups too. So you don't have to be Black just to be a part of BNA, or you don't have to be a retired veteran to be a part of that group either. So there are ways that you can still be an ally, support, learn how to be more inclusive of, people with those shared interests, et cetera.
Yeah, good point. Definitely allies, right? A lot of our journey is based on allyship, as we're still changing the dynamics of our organization. So I think even that's a key indicator of how many people are willing to learn and actually be a part of that journey. I think asking those questions as people come to job fairs or you're in interviews, asking what's your diversity makeup, right? What's your strategy? And can that person in front of you share that, what that looks like? You know, because you don't always have to be there, but you're trying to get there, right? And so I know Jasmine mentioned, and so did John, their ambitious goals. We have our 2030 goals as well, right? And so, you know, what are those? How are we striving for that? And then I think retention is good because it's one thing to bring people in, but how are you retaining them? What does that look like? And I think that's a key of focusing on how do you have staying interviews? How do you find out what people feel wanted and want to have a 10, 20, 30-year career, right? They're not, you know, 2 years and then they're on to the next company. I think that's important. And then I think lastly, too, is just making those connections, right? I do a lot of virtual coffee with people that said, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time? And I think, you know, pretty much anyone on this panel and pretty much anybody I do know, when someone does reach out and just say, hey, I just want to get to know more about the industry, about your job or your work at this company, people do make the time to have those conversations. So take advantage of them. The worst thing they can say is, hey, I don't have time, but let me connect you with someone else that does, right? So I think don't be afraid to ask.
I looked up our splash page, external splash page for job openings at GAO, and you were talking about it would show up. I'll show you real quick why we say you should come work at GAO. I mean, this is driven through my organization. These are not just words on a page. This is something that we're all striving to do. As a recruiter, you know, one of the things that I focused on was we had a tendency, GAO's a pretty, I mean, it probably sounds bad, but it's kind of an elite organization. We're not very big, and we get a lot of applications for only a few jobs. And so we were getting really great masters of public policy candidates from the best big schools. Do you all see the problem yet? Right? I mean, we just weren't fishing where the fish were, right? And so we've adjusted and are evolving very quickly. And that's a whole thing, right? Where if you go out and we do this, like I came in after undergrad, we're starting to hire promising undergrads for internships and basically teaching them the GAO culture and all of that. And so I'm very proud that we've adjusted, because that made it kind of hard, because we'd go out to a great policy school and there might be one Hispanic and two African Americans in the entire program, right? Master's program. And even if we could hire those folks, they very often left. And so we just weren't retaining like we want. So we're in the midst of that. I mean, again, we've had some successes. I don't mean to paint a negative picture. I'm just telling you we're evolving to make sure we keep the pipeline full with great candidates. So I think you have to be really honest with yourself as an organization. It's like where you are, right? We have some retention issues in mid-grade for particularly African-American men. And we're trying to figure out, is that a mentorship issue? Is that what is that? What I found as a line leader is that what I can do as an ally, or whatever you want to call it, is reach a hand out to somebody that's getting ready to try something new, right? And they're looking across a chasm. They don't know what that is. Take on a project manager role or whatever. And when they look on the other side and they may not see people that look like them, you just reach out a hand and say, come on, it'll be fine, right? You get your butt kicked a little bit, but so did everybody. Come on, it'll be fine. As long as they feel like there's somebody kind of taking an interest and helping them across those rough spots, you can have good success. And I think teaching people how to coach and mentor that way, all people, is the way you keep the organization fresh. And don't just mentor people that you like, mentor people with different skills. Right? That's where unconscious bias really kills you. When they only want to mentor people that they like, which is you get more of the same typically when you do that. You have to try to reach out as a leader and mentor people that are different than you. And that builds the strength of the organization. Again, I can't quite remember what the question was, but I'll stand on that answer for now.
No, we appreciate the transparency with that. And I'm actually going to, anybody who knows me, I like to sometimes deviate and go in a different direction just a little bit. And so students, I need for you to do me a favor. Put in the chat, this question is for you first. How many, as we're talking about diversity in the workplace, how many of you have thought about working in a different industry, but was unsure about what it really entails? You can put a yes or a no, or, whatever you want to put in there. And I'm asking this question for a reason, but just want to get a feel. You can put it in the chat. How many have thought about exploring a different industry or kind of a different career path since being here at UK? Okay, so I'm seeing some yeses. Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the honesty. Okay. I want to acknowledge the one no. Appreciate that. I want to acknowledge it both ways. The reason why I'm asking that question is because for who our panelists are, these are probably non-traditional industries that many students have explored, nor have thought about the spirits or the technology side, or for some governmental. And so now coming back to our panelists, what are some tips you have for students to diversify their thought process into other industries that they may have never explored?
I would say my recommendation is do internships, co-ops, any opportunity you have like that, because those are they have a fixed term. If you hate the industry, you're done with it after your 10, 12 weeks and you learn from it, you can cross it off the box. But if you love it, you gain an opportunity for exposure. So I would say don't be afraid to try something new, and especially if there's programs like that throughout your career. I think attending sessions like this will be a great opportunity. Like I said, I went to Purdue for engineering, and I went to a job fair and somebody was talking about sales. And I was like, oh my gosh, they get a company car and this seems like luxurious. They get to travel. Next thing I know, I said, sign me up, right? And so, just not being afraid to try it. I mean, especially, when you're young, right? And before you have lots of responsibilities and bills and things of that nature. I think, just trusting yourself that you can always go back, but can you live with yourself if you never tried, right? Would you think about it later and years later? And just keeping an open mind, I would say, would be my advice.
I would say the same thing. I went to college for computer science and math. And although I ended up selling computers, it's totally different. Sales is different. My degree was a lot of programming and, really heavy on math and statistics and things like that. And so that has nothing to do with sales. And so I just happened upon this sales job. I was kind of, that after graduation, not really sure if I wanted to go to grad school or start working. And, parents are like, okay, you just graduated. Now you got to figure it out. What are you doing? And so and I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to stay in Nashville. And so, I took this job with the thought process that, hey, I'm just doing this to be able to take care of myself. And I'm going to probably go back to grad school in 6 months. And I was fortunate enough to have leaders who saw a lot of potential in me from a leadership standpoint and really pushed me into, leadership, not like forcing, but really encouraging me and saying, hey, this is something that you really can do. And I encourage you to interview for these opportunities, et cetera. And so if I hadn't had the right people in my corner, and actually the one that I give a lot of credit to was female, if I hadn't had her, in my corner and really seeing that leadership potential, I might not be, where I am today, or I might have taken a different path. But one of the things that I love about Dell is that we have an open door policy. So we're not closed, even when we're in the office, we're not closed up in offices and things like that. So we're really accessible to our people. And, you know, for even executive leadership, we can reach out, ask for one-on-one. So networking is very important. I think one of the panelists mentioned mentorship. So, you know, seeking out mentors, having those exploratory conversations, interviewing your mentors to make sure that they're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for them, and that you're really going to gain something from that relationship. And then for myself, I want to lead by example, because there aren't a lot of people that look like me in what I do right now. And so I want to make sure that I lead by example, because I know, you know, that my team members are looking up at me, but also, or looking up to me, but also being a mentor and giving back as well, because people did that for me.
People do pay it forward. I've been around, I've been doing this 34 years. And I have found that every investment I make in someone to coach and develop them pays back multiple times, because then they start thinking, well, that's, somebody did that for me, you know, I got to do it for somebody else. And so I couldn't agree more, Jasmine. I think that's so important. As leaders, we can set that tone, you know, to actually care about folks and how they're doing and helping them through those knotty parts of their career, encourage them to apply for that promotion or whatever. My origin story, I'm like the other panelists. I didn't intend to work for the government. I have a business degree, and I tried engineering, but I couldn't stay up all night working math problems with the guys in the engineering building there at UK. So I ended up getting a finance degree, which I thought would be fun. And because I grew up kind of poor, and I thought, well, I'll go in somewhere where I can understand money and make money. And then one of my accounting, I used to tend bar at Southland. There's a bowling alley south of town on Nicholsville Road, Southland Lanes, and there was a bar next door, and I tended bar there. And one of the accounting professors used to bowl there, and he would come in after the thing. So I knew him a little bit, and I said, "Have you ever heard of the GAO?" And he goes, "Nope." Or I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Yep." And I said, "Well, they're coming to recruit, and I'm signed up. What should I say about them?" There was no internet, you know, we're on 1987. And he said, "Come to my office tomorrow. You'd be perfect for GAO." And he gave me this big box of materials, and I stood at the bar and read them, and I thought, this sounds interesting, right? And I started exploring it myself. It's like, what would interest me, the work itself, right? And I figured out that it was more important to me to do meaningful work than it was to make a lot of money. So I did not make as much money when I took the GAO offer as I would have if I'd gone to New York. Stock market crashed that fall, so I'd probably had been back home, but or, you know, gone to work for, you know, corporate or whatever. But I've enjoyed it, right? I've done very interesting work. I thought about what drove me and the meaningful, non-repetitive nature of the work. Every topic is different. So my advice, that's the end. It's like, think about what's important to you, right? I mean, you want to get financially independent. I got it. You know, there's all those things, but think about what drives you and go into industry. You know, is it the people you work with? Is it what you do? Do you need to see new places? And be really honest with yourself, and that'll help you make a good decision.
John, I'm it's a little scary about your story. I'm gonna tell you why. My background is in accounting, and I bowl at Southland, so I'm a little scared about your story right now. So that helps me out there. I see a question in the chat here. So this question looks like it's for Jasmine and Angela. You both mentioned being Black women, your position isn't something you see too often. Were there any issues when you first got into your jobs because of those stereotypes?
I'm gonna say no. I don't feel like I've ever felt that because I was female or because I was Black that I didn't have the same opportunities. I mean, in sales, a lot of it is a meritocracy, so it is based on, you know, your performance and the work that you put into the job that you want. So I feel like we do foster a culture where you can grow and develop regardless of, who you are, what you look like, what your background is. Our senior vice president is an out and open gay male. And so I feel like, he's had, opportunities, and because of his sexual orientation or who he loves, that didn't prevent him from going from a entry-level sales rep all the way to our senior vice president and general manager of our segment. So I don't feel like I've ever, experienced anything outwardly, I can't say, but I do feel like as, a minority or a double minority in this case, that you do still have to work extra hard. I mean, it just is what it is. You have to work hard. You have to be vocal about what you want, and because you are that minority. So sometimes people might not see, that you have that potential, and we have to work a little bit harder to show, that we do.
Yeah, I would agree. I do feel like I do work harder. I also will say that, regardless of who you are, sometimes being the first person does come with its challenges, right? So you're the first person that looks like you in that seat, and if you think about intersectionality, right, whether it's you're, a Hispanic female or, a gay man that is in that position, I think there comes with some challenges. I think for me, I think the biggest challenge I had was who's at the table and advocating for me in those rooms that I'm not in yet, right? And so how do I learn and navigate those political avenues, right? And so for me, that was new. That was a challenge because I had to get out of my comfort zone, right? So a lot of this talk may happen on the golf fit, right? On the golf course. I don't golf. So how do I get invited to the golf course so that, hey, they say, oh, Angela's pretty cool. Next time we're thinking out a special project, let's think of her. And so having to kind of integrate some of those things or finding things in common so that you're a topic of conversation in those rooms, I think has definitely been a challenge. But also gives you an opportunity to say, hey, I overcome those challenges. And how do I give someone else a hand up? So how am I advocating for the next person in the room? How am I giving people different opportunities? Because I think a lot of times some of our biggest barriers are just that exposure piece, right? You don't have exposure. So you may be the greatest person doing X, but if nobody knows it, then that's why you're not getting promoted. That's why you're not getting. And so how do we get people on projects? How do we get people special assignments? How do we say, hey, this is your mentor? So I think being creative is another way to overcome some of those obstacles. And I think for me, earlier in my career, I didn't know how to navigate that. And the older I got and the more mature I got, I've had, people who were mentors to me that didn't look like me to say, hey, this is what we need to do. Like, let me help you understand how this works. And so I think it's more so who's in your corner and who's helping coach you through this, because you can't do it alone. I'll tell you that for sure. You definitely. And you also got to have, I say, different groups, right? Your group that you vent to, that you say, okay, I've had a long day, and you just vomit everything out on them. And then you say, okay, good. And then you have that group that you say, okay, well, I've regrouped and this is how I'm going to say it to you a different way, right? This is what I need. This is what I want for you. How can you help me? Right. And so I think making sure that you balance between those two is extremely important, because everybody doesn't need to know when you're having a bad day, and everybody can't handle it either. Right. And so I think learning and be able to keep up with your emotions is key as well.
That was so spot on. Having advocates is so important. Because you're not going to always be in those meetings, like Angela said, and you're not going to always be at the table. So you have to build advocates. And the best way to do that is that networking, setting up one-on-ones, getting to know people, allowing them to know what you bring and, what do they bring and what can they help you with. So strongly encourage mentoring wherever you go in your career, whatever company you end up at, mentor.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions? We're getting closer to time, but again, I want to see if there's another question out there before I ask a kind of a closing one when we get there, but want to see if there are any other questions first. All right, before I get to my closing question, and I think this question is important. What are some suggestions in navigating kind of situations where diversity isn't embraced? As I like this question because as much as we talk about what is, how do we navigate the spaces where things could still happen, and how do you kind of go through that process?
That's a good HR expert question.
I was gonna say, I can't say you're not gonna encounter those spaces, because you are, whether it's at school, whether it's at work, whether it's at a restaurant, you're gonna encounter some of those spaces. But my advice to people is, you may not can control what others do, but you can control your reaction to that, right? And so, being mindful that that may happen and thinking through, okay, well, how would I handle the situation? And I think it goes back to a couple of things, right? There's times that you can be assertive and still offer grace and education, right? Because sometimes people don't know what they don't know. And so you have to educate them, right? And sometimes there's going to be a space where that person's not going to change. And so you have to decide, hey, am I going to divulge and keep giving this person my energy? Am I going to be able to move on and move past that? I think that's the other piece. And if it's a place where you're working, I think that's a big question of, do I stay? Is this the right place for me? Right. And so going back to the previous questions, asking those questions, networking with people, talking to people who work there, getting a pulse, asking to visit, right? Doing site visits are a great opportunity. Interning, you'll definitely get that vibe. And I say, trust your gut. Right? There's things that will change, and then there's things that may not change as quickly as you want them to change. And so I think that's a key balance. But I always remind people, you can control your reaction, right? Because once you act inappropriately or react to something maybe not in, the best way, then that becomes the center of attention, not that particular space where you're not being accepted. So I just encourage people to, arm yourself with education, arm yourself with poise, have a coach, have a mentor, have someone that can share their experiences, because you are taking all that in. And so that also does help the way when you see a situation, how you react to it as well.
From a line manager point of view, right? I'll give you one that I'm working right now. I have a team, and the assistant director, the person that works directly for me, is an Asian female. The project manager is a gay male. Everyone knows this, all these things about each other. And the two staff, one is a senior economist, white fella, and the other is an older Hispanic lady who joined GAO mid-career. And the two staff members cannot get along. They just cannot get along. And the reason I bring this up is because it's not necessarily being presented as a diversity issue. But I think what's actually happening is that the senior economist is devaluing the Hispanic lady, the way he's asking questions, the way he's commenting. So what are we doing about it? The first thing we're doing is that we're encouraging them to talk, right? And try to work through that. Both of them can learn, right, from this. He can learn what he's doing that's causing her to feel that way. She can voice that and whatever. If that doesn't work, right, we'll start to take management, decisions to separate them some and whatever, but that's not ideal. If it can't be resolved, I can virtually guarantee you I'll reassign one of them, because we just don't, when I see this kind of thing, we just don't play, right? Because that's the kind of stuff that's corrosive. It's just corrosive, right? If she gets the idea that, that this guy, and then it lasts forever. So from a management standpoint, once this kind of thing comes to our attention, we first try to encourage the team to work through it, understand each other better, that kind of thing. But if that doesn't work, we manage it to keep it from, because again, we don't want people to feel like they're being treated badly. So I think from a management standpoint, you just you need to stay on top of it. So the original question was about, what do you navigate a situation where it's not embraced? Try to manage. I think Angela's comments were great. You can control yourself, right? And how you react to what somebody says. But if you need help, you should ask for it. There are lots of people out there that want to help you. Trust me. I can vouch for GAO for sure. And if you're not comfortable in a situation, and then that helps us decide like how to develop, the other people around you. Maybe they've got a blind spot, right? It's all for the good. So sorry, Mark, I rambled there, but just trying to make it real,
Appreciate that. Jasmine, did you have any thoughts?
Well, I'll say internally, obviously, most companies and even universities have measures in place where you can report when you feel like we have like the ethics hotline here at Dell, that you can report things to anonymously if you felt like you've been mistreated, or if you have any instances or occurrences that might fall in those categories. Also, you might have some trusted advisors or people that you can talk to in seniority, or your direct manager that you can talk to and confide in, that can also handle the situation. I think the best thing is to make sure that you do say something and not keep quiet about it, because we can never get better if we're not vocal.
Amen to that.
Right. So I want to thank our panelists for being here today. Want to thank Angela, Jasmine, and John for taking time out and meeting with us and really talking about diversity. When we talk about the workplace, as you transition, these are things that you should do a lot of investigating in, and investigating starts now. And so I kind of want to end with this question, last question. As we talked about diversity, I think many of us may not have considered these different industries. So I want to give the panelists, if there are any internships you'd like to highlight that students should apply for, as well as what would you say is either the one fun thing about your industry or company that students should know as they are exploring and diversifying their exploration of industries?
Yeah, I'll just say Dell.com/careers. We do have an internship program. I actually had a summer intern this past summer from UK. She is a senior now, and her project was focused on diversity hiring and retention for our specific segment, small business, and it was a huge success. And she contributed a lot of great ideas to how we can better hire from a diverse candidate standpoint, as well as support and retain our team members when they are officially onboarded. So we do offer internships. We'll probably always have some type of project around diversity and, hiring and retention. So, and then for Dell, I'm in sales, so there's a lot of obviously other, careers that you can have at Dell. But I would say the best thing about sales is you can go a lot of different places. So our marketing director, senior director, started as an entry-level sales rep, just like I did. And I already told you, like, our senior vice president started as an entry-level sales rep. Sales is the key to marketing, communications, a lot of different other roles. We've had people go from sales to HR. So even if you have your mind focused on, next 3 to 5 years, this is what I want to do, sales is a path to a lot of different things. And so don't be so closed about it because it's sales. It's not cold calling sales. That's always a plus. A lot of people definitely don't like the cold call, and I totally understand that. But sales is fun. I'm here because I really enjoy the people that I work with. I really enjoy the career growth and opportunities, and then the ability to take care of my son and myself and my family. So.
Yeah, I would say too, Beam Suntory is what we're known for, but it's the spirits industry. It is an industry that is here for a while, right? People drink when they're happy, people drink when they're sad. So from a stability standpoint, it's definitely lots of opportunities for growth and development. From marketing to sales to supply chain to your traditional engineering. There's so many different avenues, finance that we have. So I do encourage people to go to beamsuntory.com/careers. I do run the internship program for Kentucky. So definitely been very intentional partner with the Beam Institute to offer the majority of our interns with the University of Kentucky. So we'll be recruiting for those soon. We do have opportunities for technology. I saw that in a little chat, right? So we do have stuff in IT as well. But I say this, I've had a really good journey here, and people have embraced me. There's people, the coworkers that I work with are great. That's one reason I keep coming back every day. I love a challenge. I love the opportunity to do something different. And I think that's one thing that we do offer here. Like I mentioned, we're on the journey, we're changing, we're growing, but it's a journey. So, but I definitely thank everybody for the opportunity to even be on this panel and to share with you a little bit more about Jim Beam and also the spirits industry.
Well, as I think I might have mentioned, I can't remember, I'm GAO's campus executive for the University of Kentucky. So I can sort of lead recruiting there along with a couple of folks that helped me. So if you have any questions about GAO after this, you can reach me at pendletonj@gao.gov. And our jobs are posted on gao.gov. You just have to do a couple of click-throughs. We have student interns available for both generalists as well as financial auditors. Some of those close on October 1st. You do not have to be a graduate. You'd have to be a student. There's an undergraduate intern. So I encourage you to apply, but you better hustle because it's closing soon. In terms of why did I come to GAO, I told you earlier, it's because I thought the work would be meaningful, and that's turned out really to be true. Over my career, I've traveled to probably 25 countries for GAO. I've testified before Congress several times, and it's a lot for a kid from Adair County, right? It's been a great career. And it feels like it, getting toward the end of it, I can look back and be very proud. GAO is a family in that we do take care of you, and work-life balance is not just a slogan for us. Once you've proven yourself and you're part of the family, we will bend over backwards to take care of you. I've had my own moments, right? I blew my Achilles tendon out the day before I retired from basketball, Mark. And I was out, and my boss sent me and had somebody bring me my computer with a note saying, we didn't have telework then. He says, if you want to work at home, you can. If not, that's fine too. Basically allowing me not to have to take sick leave while I was recuperating. We didn't have a telework policy then. And he had someone bring me the computer. It was very, very thoughtful, I thought, because I did kind of want to work. I was just sitting around watching Law and Order. But that's a little tiny sliver of the things that we do to take care of our people. And that's what I would tell you to look for in an organization, is find some place that you believe cares about its people. And that goes a long way.
So it sounds like you did the original binge watching where you go for a marathon.
I did. Doctor told me not to move my foot.
Came in back to back.
It was bad. I have to admit, I've watched a couple of Law and Order since the pandemic started, if I'm honest. Kind of run out of anything else. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for inviting me, Mark. I've enjoyed it. I hope it's been helpful.
Students, help me in thanking our panelists here today for giving us some insight, some knowledge. And I always say this after each panel, like, network. Find them on LinkedIn. There's an opportunity to have those follow-up conversations. And as it was said earlier, that 15-minute conversation can go into a different direction, whether it be into a different department or an internship opportunity. So again, we want to thank our panelists for making this time. And students, we will see you at our next event that we have. And if you have any other suggestions for panels or anything else, please let us know. So everyone have a wonderful end to the Monday. We made it. And I'm just excited for you to be here. And I'm excited for what the rest of your week looks like. So have a good one and be great. Be great. It's Monday. Be great.
Thank you.